This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. I have been warning about the two different communist regimes, the Republican communist regime and the Democratic communist regime. One is going to be a artificial based governance, right? Everything is going to be done through AI electronically. With this whole thing that we hear with equity and inclusion, that's how they're going to market blue states being governed that way. For people out there that aren't paying attention, the conservative states are going to be police states. That is why they've aligned the police with conservative governors and politicians. They've aligned the police with Donald Trump. They've aligned the police and the states that are red as being safe havens from mandates, safe havens from crime. And they're telling us, hey, unlike these liberal cities where they're letting crime run amok, in our states, we're going to go after these people. And nobody's paying attention to the underlying theme of a state like Florida and how Florida is literally revealing themselves as a police state. And so are other conservative states as well. You might remember I talked about what was going on during spring break down there. It was a precedent. They were setting a precedent, and it's continuing now as this bill has been signed that is going to literally give the police carte blanche. Okay? Carte blanche. The police are going to have zero accountability. Their citizens are going to have no rights. It is going to be a police state. That's what it is by definition. A totalitarian state controlled by a political police force that secretly supervises the citizens' activities, all under the guise of a police state. It'll be no different than an AI-run, AI-based smart city. All the things that we see that they're pushing towards the blue states, it's just going to be a different brand of it. It's going to be the same type of enslavement, and they're going to market this as a utopia to all the citizens. Say, hey, it's safe here. Oh, illegals aren't allowed in our states, so we're going to have digital IDs. It's not going to be like the blue states. Our digital IDs are going to make sure that nobody who isn't a U.S. citizen is allowed in. Everybody's going to agree to it because they're getting gaslit with the border. That's the point of it, right? And then, of course, the police are going to supersede all rights because any outsiders are going to be taken care of by the police. They're going to air it in the media. They're going to talk about somebody who was in there in a red state who wasn't a conservative or didn't belong in a red state, and they went and they punched a woman or they did something horrific, and the police handled their business, and nobody will think anything of it, right? This is what's going on in Florida. DeSantis is really turning this into a police state. No joke.
Right now at 3:30, we're looking at new state legislation signed by Governor Ron DeSantis. The measure effectively stops citizen review boards from investigating the actions of local law enforcement officers.
The governor is calling those review boards highly political and accuses them of being stacked with activists. Local 10's Laren Livingston is joining us live from Miami to break down what this new law really actually means. Laren?
And we also spoke with the head of Miami's civilian investigative panel. He says right now they're still trying to evaluate this new legislation to kind of see where things go from here. But as you mentioned there, the governor, he talks a lot about law enforcement and how this new legislation is supposed to support law enforcement. Well, critics say they are now concerned and they're wondering at what expense.
In my opinion, it always helps the police be able to do a better job knowing that there is another eye watching them.
Larry Handfill is an attorney currently representing a man who was shot by Miami police. He was also the first chairman of Miami's Citizen Investigative Panel.
The purpose was to give credibility for the citizens that their investigations, their complaints were going to be seriously looked at with an open eye, with ability of objectivity.
He fears all of that will disappear when House Bill 601 goes into effect. Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill into law Friday, which limits what police oversight boards can do.
Yeah, they can meet, they can exercise whatever First Amendment. They're not going to have any right to initiate disciplinary proceedings.
Our focus is not punishing individual officers. We at no point have had the power to do so. We help bring civilian perspective into policy making and analysis of the police department and what our criminal justice system should be.
They understand that civilian oversight is a necessary component that makes our public safety system work, but they just don't want civilians doing it.
Under the law going forward, any board must be established or reestablished by a sheriff or chief who would appoint its members. At least one retired law enforcement officer must sit on the board. raising concerns of confidence.
I think it's very misleading to think that police chiefs are going to appoint people who are independent thinkers in the community.
With some, I guess, almost 24 of these review boards across the state, we did reach out to some of the local ones here that have them in place: Fort Lauderdale, Miami-Dade County, City of Miami here. We're still waiting to hear back from those heads of those departments to kind of see where they stand on things, what their take is on things. But this law, of course, goes into effect on July 1st. In Miami, Larry Livingston, Local 10 News.
Okay, and as you see that story, remember what I covered a few weeks ago. I covered how some of these states like Indianapolis were putting in curfews. Okay, they're putting in curfews, and they're doing this very subversively. Like, they're putting it out there like Easter weekend, for example. They're like, it's Easter weekend, we're going to put a curfew in, keep everybody safe. And everybody was like, that sounds like a great idea. I don't feel safe leaving my home, right? Indianapolis, going to be, you could start seeing which states are going to be blue states versus red states. So that's something we have to keep in mind, because you're going to see which ones are pro-police, which ones aren't, which ones are allowing crimes, and which ones are being portrayed to us as states where the police are enforcing strict rules and laws and crime rates are down, right? Remember the spring break security measures, bag checks, DUI checkpoints, license plate readers. You couldn't get on the beach without a pat down, and people were okay with this, all right? Curfews were in place, had to be home by midnight. Liquor store closing at 8. Towing fees doubled. No sidewalk seating at restaurants. Heightened police presence on beaches. I mean, all of this stuff, how people don't see it. Problem, reaction, solution, right? They're doing it on the left and the right. And the problem is that the right is getting so suckered in without realizing it, because they're saying to themselves, I'm sick of seeing all these stories of crimes. I'm sick of seeing stories of men giving WWF punches to women walking the streets with no motive whatsoever. They're just walking down the road, hitting women. And these people are believing the stories, and they're going, we need to do something about this. Where are the police? And then in cities like New York and California, they go, we're actually limiting the police. We're not letting the police come out in the middle of the night. You know, we're just not going to allow that. New York now putting in, artificial intelligence, gun checkpoints, etc. Right? They're putting this stuff in place going, this will stop it. And then they'll come out and they'll tell you that it's lowering the rate of this. And they're going to go, see, we don't need more cops. That's not the answer. We need more tech. And the other people will go, well, we need more police. We need more police. We need to do this the right way, which is the way it's always been done. The Patriot way, the old school way, more police force, right? They have no idea about the fraternal order of police, how the police are controlled and run through Freemasonry. Okay, everyone out there always is skeptical of that. It's 100% true. Maybe if you were in the 60s or 70s, you were a cop, and you didn't, when you went through the police academy, you didn't have to go through the fraternal order of police, but I've covered it millions of times, and I'll cover it again if people out there want me to cover it, okay? It is compromised. They have to go through the fraternal Masonic order, which means they take an oath to a brotherhood, right? And then you have all the sheriffs and you have all the higher-ups on the police force who are obviously in control. And then when you hear the story like that where DeSantis is saying, well, we're going to have a board of police who are going to, they're going to regulate other police. The citizens won't have any say because the citizens are just wasting too much of the police officers' time, right? And that's the excuse they give. And then people go, that's enough for me. That's enough, because they don't know how these secret societies network with each other. And they've networked their way to full control. And they're taking our rights little by little. And then all of these puppets like DeSantis, who are puppets, DeSantis doesn't come out as a puppet for the WEF, because he's one of the ones that tries to pretend and show that he's against it by speaking about them. But we know he's a puppet for Israel, right? But conservatives and Christians don't know what that means. They're like, oh, that's a good thing, right? They're the chosen people. So they're completely misled. So the new state legislation signed by Governor DeSantis last week has been enacted, effectively halting the ability of citizen review boards to investigate the actions of local law enforcement officers, which really by definition is a police state. DeSantis referred to these review boards to investigate the actions of local law enforcement officers. Under House Bill 601, sheriffs would have the authority to establish civilian oversight boards tasked with reviewing law enforcement agencies' policies and procedures. So now what you're seeing here is police are not going to be held accountable. Police can literally start acting out, which is what the plan really is. I mean, look, I've talked about this for a couple of years, that there's no way that 50% of the population was going to go on board with this whole agenda, with the smart cities, etc. So they had to give you an alternate version. There's two versions. It's an illusion of freedom. That's what America's always been built on, an illusion of freedom. I use the grocery store as the perfect example. You feel free when you're at the grocery store, right? You don't even feel enslaved by the dollar or the tax man or Big Brother's all-seeing eye. You feel free because you're opening a freezer at the grocery and you're picking between, Stouffer's frozen mac and cheese, or you're going to get the process or even the junkier Kraft mac and cheese off the shelf where you mix the powder together and you go, oh, well, I'm in the mood for this poison today. I'll take the Kraft poison. And you feel free because you're making a choice, but you're not. The money's going to the same corporation. They all run and control everything. You're getting the same chemicals put in each food. One just tastes a little bit different than the other one, and one's a little bit longer of a process to make than the other one. But other than that, it's an illusion. It's an illusion of freedom because you're still buying your food from these corporations instead of growing your own food or going to a local farm and getting your food. So it's the illusion of freedom, right? This is going to be the same thing, the way that this is mapped out. And everybody's who rejects going to these blue states and goes to these red states, which we're going to be forced into. I'm telling you right now, this is going to go down. I might have the timeline off, but it's going to go down in the next, 15 years max is my guess, okay? And in these states, they're going to make it to the point where we can't live with the other side anymore, which has already started, which we can already see, and everybody already feels it. It's true. Everybody feels it, whether you're awake or not. I feel it. I can identify these people by looking at them. I see these people wearing masks out at the grocery store. You don't think I'm going, oh my, you already know how they vote. You already know what their ideologies are. You already know how they think. And it becomes difficult to be around them because you know that the next time the TV makes up a lie, that those same people are going to try to enforce laws and rules on you. So they're making it unbearable for the two to be together. But the problem is that 50% of the population there should be a revolution that occurs against this. That's what should be occurring. But people like DeSantis, Trump, these are all people put in place for you to go to them for the solution to the problems that they're creating. It's just another variation of problem, reaction, solution. It's just the conservative side of it, right? Oh, come to these states. We won't force anything in you. You won't even know what's getting put in your food, right? Remember all the stuff that I've covered over on the website? We talked about this for years. You're all aware of it. The stuff that they're putting in the foods, the same stuff that they're trying to put in your body, right? They're putting it in the animals that we eat, etc., right? So you don't think in conservative states that they're going to be doing that in the food? They might tell you that you don't need to go and get this or go and do that. You could have free choice, but then they'll just poison your food supply. That's what they'll do. And maybe they'll cease chemtrailing in those states, like I talked about with Tennessee, how they're baiting people into these states. There's going to be all these psychological tactics they use to get us to go into the states that seem free, that seem like the illusion of, oh, yes, we could go here. We don't have to deal with this stuff anymore. And then on the backside of it, you have the division that's mounting over and over where they're, bringing things up like Roe v. Wade, right? They're bringing all these things up, the biggest things they could possibly bring up to gaslight people away from one another by design, okay? And their clock is ticking on this plan. That's why I don't think this is a 20-year plan or a 30-year plan. I think it's faster than that. And we could see it. We could see it around us. And that's why the 2024 election is so big. It's fake, okay? But whatever the outcome is, there's going to be massive false flags around it. There's going to be massive psyops around it, okay? We know whoever they pick in this election, because the vote doesn't count, whoever they pick, okay, the other side is going to say that it's rigged and it's not real. And that's going to begin the separation of the states. The stuff with the border also working into that. More outbreaks and mandates also working into that. Roe v. Wade working into that. Watch for stories about gay rights and gay marriage being banned in certain states. That's what we're headed towards. Gaslighting from the government, changing laws and bills without the request of the citizens, doing it because they're herding you like sheep and cattle. And then when you think you're in a safe haven like Florida, you wake up one morning and you realize, wait a minute. Hey, the police came to my door and attacked me and my wife. And you say, what? Yeah, the police came, and you say, well, did you call the police and report it? And say, yeah, I did, and nobody showed up. And say, well, somebody's got to review it. No, they don't. And why would they come to your house? Well, I was posting online that I questioned DeSantis, and I was starting to question what was going on in this state. And suddenly these guys in FBI outfits came, and they clubbed me, or police outfits, and they clubbed me, and that's it. And then I called, and nobody answered my calls. Nobody showed up, and that's the end of the story. Because the police state rules. And in a police state, you have no rights. Just like in a AI governed state, you have no rights. And that's why it's imperative for them to speed this process up, because if people figure out that both sides are controlled, there's a revolution. People look at each other and they go, you know what? We were mad at each other, but we need to rise up because we're about to lose all our rights and we're putting our trust in these people who are working and manipulating us. That's what we're doing. And a real revolution would prevent that. But as long as the placeholders like Trump and DeSantis are in place, these people aren't even going to see right in front of their faces that they are willingly. The one thing they always talked about, conservatives and people who talk New World Order, always talked about the fear of a police state, okay, martial law, all these types of things, right? We've always warned about it, and everyone's like, we got to keep an eye on it. Oh, Biden's going to call in martial law. And they don't even realize that the rights in these bills that are getting signed are really just implementing a police state in these states that are getting marketed to them as safe haven states. It's incredible that they don't see it. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.